is going to be a good serviceable cornerback. We're trying to find a play across from Darius Slay. And if this were last year, I would be really disappointed in the Blount signing because we only saw him play well in New England outside of that 1 year in Tampa. But he went to Philly and still played really well, didn't show any lethargy. So that's exciting. And also only $2 million for Blount, I feel like, is a pretty good deal. So I like that signing. We definitely still need to address the running back position, get that running game going. But, yeah, I think they're both good signings.
Yeah, I think it's a smart hire bringing in a veteran running back like Blunt who's won playoff games and had big performances and big moments before. Stoyo, what do you think of the Lions' moves with Deshaun Shedd and LeGarrette Blount?
Those are good moves, but the most important move is cutting Ebron.
Yeah.
I think that was huge. You have to turn the page over, Detroit. And also, Gavin, I have a question for you. Is Blount finally the running back that's going to break the 100-yard marker?
Nope.
No? Oh, no.
The thousand yard since Reggie Bush, right?
Yeah, we haven't had a 1,000-yard rusher since Bush, and
100.
No, they've had 100-yard rushers.
No, not a single game.
Since when? Yeah, how far back we're going?
45 games.
I would say if we're talking since last Thursday, then yeah, I'll agree with you. But
in like 45, maybe 50 games, you haven't had a 100-yard rusher.
That's actually not terribly surprising. But I also don't think he's the guy either. It's going to take him too long to run 100 yards. 60 minutes isn't enough time.
Yeah, I think he's a good addition, but the Lions should still be looking for more. The Dolphins are releasing All-Pro center Mike Pouncey and bringing in guard Josh Sitton on a 2-year, $15 million deal, as well as wide receiver Albert Wilson on a 3-year, $24 million deal. And then they got rid of defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh, who is probably the hottest free agent out there right now. He's traveling around. He visits the Saints, the Seahawks, the Rams, and now the Raiders. Stoyo, where do you think is the best fit for Ndamukong Suh?
In prison.
Oh.
I don't think that's a good fit for him. He's not going to see the field too much.
I'm joking. Since the Bears face him twice a year. But I don't know. Maybe Seahawks sign him.
Yeah.
But to say, I don't know. It depends how much money he wants, because he is not worth top dollars anymore.
Yeah, in my mind, I'm sure he still wants a lot, and I don't care where he goes as long as he stays out of the NFC North. Gavin, what do you think about Suh? What do you think is a good fit for him?
The Lions for only $2 million a year. I think that's the perfect fit for him. I'm not sure exactly where would be the best place for him. I think that he needs to have a strong locker room, someplace where he is not, the revered player. I still think that he, is definitely a good defensive tackle. He's, been putting up, 4 or 5 sacks a year, which for a tackle is, is definitely pretty good, but definitely not worth the money he was being paid. I was happy that someone signed him for a huge deal when he left Detroit, because that meant we didn't sign him to an $18 million a year deal. But I'd happily take him back if he came back at the right price.
What do you think about, he was rumored to go to the Rams, and that would be adding Suh with Aaron Donald on that line. Do you think that would make the Rams that much better if they added him to that line?
Absolutely. I mean, I believe the guy's still very talented. When you put him next to possibly the best defensive tackle in the game, teams are going to have to decide which player they want to go up against. You have 2 guys that are athletic and strong it's going to be really hard to double team both of them and leave the ends, essentially one of them, unguarded. So that would have been pretty devastating for the NFC West.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad he didn't end up there. The Cincinnati Bengals agreed to a 1-year deal to keep the former Notre Dame tight end Tyler Eifert on the team. They also add linebacker Preston Brown on a 1-year deal and quarterback Matt Barkley on a 2-year deal. Stoyo, the Bengals star linebacker Vontaze Burfict is once again facing a 4-game suspension from the league for PEDs. Burfict is appealing. What do you think about Vontaze Burfict? The dude just can't seem to stay out of trouble, huh?
Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah.
You can't juice.
Yep.
You're more careful what you put in your body. You're a professional athlete. Your body is your tool, so you need to be aware of what goes in.
If you were a Bengals fan, how much more would you be willing to put up with to have that caliber of a linebacker on your team? Would you keep putting up with it, or is it starting to get old, do you think?
Oh, it's starting to get very old very fast.
Yeah.
But also, I would be equally upset that I still have the same coach, as the QB. Not much has changed, and it's another year.
Yep. Same old Bengals.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gavin? Do you think that Burfict is wearing out his welcome, or do you think that he's still a good enough talent that the Bengals will put up with him?
I think with Marvin Lewis there, he'll stay.
Yeah.
Over the last decade especially, we've seen the Bengals choose talent and potential over character concerns. Pac-Man Jones didn't draft him, but they did sign him after his debacle there in Tennessee. Taylor Mays, Carlos Dunlap, Michael Johnson, Andre Smith, all these guys came out of the draft over the last 10 years as highly talented, but they had character concern issues, work ethic issues. And to Marvin Lewis's credit, he's been able to get a lot out of these guys. Michael Johnson, not for a super long time, but Carlos Dunlap's been a pretty strong part of their defensive line for the last while. So I think that they'll continue to put up with that as long as he doesn't decapitate someone. At that point, he might get cut. But it may very well take that kind of event for the Bengals to move on from him.
Yeah, very good point. We often think of the Cowboys as very player-friendly, but I don't think that you could go to a better situation than the Bengals, where they're going to have the players back no matter what, it seems.
Absolutely.
The New York Jets, being aggressive, trade up in the draft to get the number 3 overall pick, but they had to give up a lot to do it. They shipped picks number 6, number 37, number 49, and another second-round pick in 2019 to the Colts. Seems like a lot to give up to move up to the number 3 overall pick. The Jets also add linebacker Avery Williamson from the Titans. 3 years, $22.5 million with $16 guaranteed. They also add kicker Cairo Santos, and they re-signed corner Morris Claiborne. 1-year deal worth $7 million. Stoyo, do you like the Jets being aggressive and moving up in the draft, or do you think they gave up too much to do it?
I think they gave up too much to do it.
Yeah.
Especially if you're listening to the rumors that they're going to draft Mayfield with that pick. So I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
This is a good move by the Colts GM after what happened with Josh McDaniels. He had a nice bounce back from that, and now he just added himself quite a lot of new picks.
Absolutely.
So that's a great move.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do when you have the 3rd pick overall, is trade down, not trade up.
Yeah. Yeah, the Jets have obviously got to have their eyes on someone. If they're just moving up to 3 and they're like, hey, we're going to take a quarterback, then I don't think it's the right move. If they're moving up and they have all the confidence in the world in one of these quarterbacks being the future of the franchise, then maybe it's worth it. But we'll see who they take. Gavin, what do you think of the aggressive Jets here?
I like the majority of the signings they made of free agents, getting some veterans in there, trying to rebuild their team. I really dislike the trade they made with the Colts. I think they gave up way too much to move up 3 spots. If you look at the point values that these picks are signed by the NFL trade value chart, the difference is 610 points, which is equivalent to the 31st overall pick in the draft. So they essentially gave up, a late first rounder to move up there,
wow.
which is a lot to spend for any team. I know that they're trading for a quarterback, but they could cripple if they don't land this pick. It all depends on who they pick and what they're able to do with this guy, because we're all assuming at this point that's a quarterback, because you don't, unless you're Mike Ditka, you don't trade this many picks for a non-quarterback. So we're assuming that's the position they're drafting, and if this doesn't stick, you're going to regress, and over the next few years, you're really going to struggle to put together a solid team on the field because you've given up so much. I think it's a great move by the Colts. The only potential downside is that you might lose out on Bradley Chubb, depending on what other trades are made and who sticks where. But there's other talented guys you can pick there at number 6. I think Chubb's one of the best players, definitely the best defensive player in this draft, and that's a position that the Colts need to address. So it's a shame if they lose out on a blue chip prospect like him, but there's still some other players available like Denzel Ward or Derwin James that they can pick around there and still bolster up their defense.
Yeah, I think it's a bit surprising. The Jets seem 100% all in to get their franchise quarterback this year, and they must see someone they really want. I don't know if it's Baker Mayfield. I don't know if it's Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen. I don't know who it is, but the Jets seem all in on a quarterback, and all I got to say is it better work out. Otherwise, they're going to be in for some more tough years ahead. They seem fed up with not having a franchise quarterback. The Green Bay Packers signed corner Kyle Fuller from the Bears to an offer sheet after the Bears had franchise tagged him for close to $13 million. Green Bay would then negotiate a very team-friendly deal for Fuller that Chicago would match almost immediately. The Bears are able to lock down corner Kyle Fuller to a 4-year deal worth $56 million, with $29 million due at signing, but nothing guaranteed after that. The only cornerbacks with richer deals would be Josh Norman, Trumaine Johnson, Xavier Rhodes, and Patrick Peterson. Stoyo, given that Green Bay matched it and we could have let him go to Green Bay, do you like the Bears matching this to keep Kyle Fuller in Chicago? And do you think that he's worth this kind of deal?
I don't know if he's worth that type of deal, but we didn't really have a choice.
Yeah.
We needed a cornerback. I would have rather given Sherman that money, to be honest. But I see how Pace kind of had to make sure that our number 1 starting corner did not go to Green Bay.
Yeah. Yeah, from my perspective, I think that's the going rate of a starting corner, and it would suck to see Fuller lined up against us in green and yellow. So I'm glad that we kept him. It's a lot to give up for him, but it's better than losing him. What do you think, Gavin? Do you think the Bears were smart to do this deal?
Yeah, I think this was a good deal for them. It's something they had to do. It's a little bit pricey, I think, for Kyle Fuller and what he's been able to do on the field, but I know that he was injured a couple years ago, and so can't really hold that against him. But the good thing for the Bears is that there's only $18 million guaranteed, so they do keep a talented guy from going to a division rival, so there's definitely positives there. And worst case scenario, if he doesn't pan out, they'll be able to release him without too much of a cap hit, or you'll potentially trade him to a team that's looking for someone with a good a friendly contract.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely getting paid, and it's good to keep him in Chicago, though. So you got to give up what you got to give up to keep a guy like him. The Bears also re-signing punter Pat O'Donnell on a 1-year deal, quarterback Chase Daniel on a 2-year, $10 million deal, linebacker Sam Acho on a 2-year deal, and they also add defensive end Aaron Lynch from the Niners on a 1-year deal. You like these moves, Stoyo?
I do. Aaron Lynch had his best season under Fangio, so
Nice.
that's a good thing to see. Sam Acho was a serviceable player on special team and has some pass rushing abilities. Or the punter mega punt has been decent, nothing too great, but I'm glad to re-sign the talent that we drafted.
Yeah.
If you play well, you're supposed to get a second contract.
Yep. Yeah, I like the moves, and I think Chicago's heading in the right direction. So good job, Pace, so far. Hopefully this year's free agency works out better than last year's.
I don't know about that.
The Texans signing corner Johnson Batamosi from New England. 2 years worth $6 million. They claim wide receiver Sammy Coates. And the Texans make a splash signing, bringing in safety Tyrann Mathieu on a 1-year deal from the Cardinals. And they also bring back veteran corner Jonathan Joseph on a 2-year deal. Gavin, do you think the Texans are making some good moves here, especially with Coates, Mathieu, and bringing back Jonathan Joseph?
Yeah, the Tyrann Mathieu deal is one of the best signings this offseason, I think. Only 1 year, $7 million for a guy that talented. He's still very young, so I think this is a great signing and bolstering up their defense. Their secondary that was definitely needing some help. Definitely like the Jonathan Joseph signing as well. He's getting into his mid-30s, but he's still pretty talented. You can expect a pretty major decline coming, like we see for most players that get to be about his age, but they didn't invest too much, so they keep the consistency in their backfield, but also don't sacrifice too much to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Texans making some good moves. Stoyo, do you think Sammy Coates, Tyrann Mathieu, and Jonathan Joseph are good fits for the Texans going forward?
Absolutely. Just the Matthews signing by itself
Yeah.
is a tremendous signing. And yeah, I don't know what happened there. That has to be the signing of the offseason. And
Yeah.
hopefully the Honey Badger has a good season and can get himself a long-term contract next season.
Yeah, stay healthy and let that nasty line and linebacking core create havoc for you and make some big plays. We all remember his ball hawking skills at LSU. So it could be a big year ahead for Tyrann Mathieu. Gavin, the Vikings reach an agreement with defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, and they re-sign kicker Kai Forbath. GM Rick Spielman seems to be going all out in Minnesota trying to get a championship there. Do you like these moves? Sheldon Richardson's a nice addition to that defense.
Yeah, the Richardson deal, not quite to the level of the Tyrann Mathieu deal, but I think it's up there, maybe one tier below. He's an extremely talented defensive lineman, and he's only 27 years old, so we don't expect to see any regression. And like I said, I like these 1-year deals, and he could easily be making time and a half that per year on a multi-year contract. So the Vikings are in a good spot right now, where they're looking to be true contenders, and so people are willing to sign for them for a little bit less than asking price. So good signing for them, bad signing for Matt Stafford.
Yeah. And for Trubisky.
Well, he was screwed anyway.
And Aaron Rodgers, for that matter. Stoyo, the Vikings were one game away from the Super Bowl. Now adding guys like Cousins and Sheldon Richardson. I mean, how much better do you think this makes Minnesota coming into the new year?
It definitely helps them.
Yeah.
This is what you have to do when you have a championship window. You just have to bet the entire house.
Yep.
And that's what management is doing over there. And I think to have at least a 3-year window with that Cousins contract, you're trying to make it work.
Yep.
Their defense is still pretty much intact. And to have team-friendly deals within the next 2 seasons, and then you're going to have to start paying some people. So this is now, and they're trying to do everything they can to really go for it. And this is the best Vikings team I've seen probably ever.
Yeah, and I'm going to make a prediction. A lot of people are saying that how good is Kirk Cousins really? Well, Kirk Cousins has never had a running game like he could have if Dalvin Cook is healthy. Barring injury, I expect a big year from Cook. And with those weapons that Kirk Cousins has, I expect a big year in Minnesota. He did a lot of good things in D.C. with not a lot of weapons, and Minnesota seems to be the perfect place for Cousins. He's got a better running game, and that defense just keeps getting better, in my opinion. So props to GM Rick Spielman in Minnesota, making some great moves. The Chargers signed kicker Caleb Sturgis on a 2-year deal worth $4.5 million, and center Mike Pouncey on a 2-year deal worth $15 million. Gavin, do you like bringing in Mike Pouncey at center in LA?
Absolutely. They need to shore up their offensive line, help their running game out, and protecting Phillip Rivers, keep him upright.
Mm-hmm.
And Pouncey is a very, very talented player. I just had some issues with staying healthy. So center is one of the most underrated positions in the NFL. And so if they're able to keep him on the field at a relatively cheap price, I think it's going to be a major win for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's good moves for the LA Chargers. Stoyo, I like these moves. I'm a believer in Jameis Winston, and I think that you had to improve that Bucs team a little bit, and they go out and do that. They signed center Ryan Jansen to a 4-year deal worth $42 million, 22 of that guaranteed, making him the highest paid center in the NFL. Tampa Bay also improves their defense, signing defensive end Vinny Curry, 3-year deal worth $27 million, 11.5 guaranteed from Philly, and they also get defensive tackle Bo Allen from Philly, 3-year deal worth $16.5 million. Stoyo, do you like the moves that Tampa Bay is doing?
They may have overpaid a little bit for Jensen, but
Yeah.
besides that, those are good moves, and now it's all on famous Jameis.
Yep.
If he can finally put it together and lead them to the playoffs.
Well,
It's all on.
yeah. And I followed Tampa Bay kind of closely a little bit, and I think that improved defense is something they definitely need. So I like bringing some Eagles players over. We all know how good that Eagles defense was. Gavin, do you like the moves? And I think Ryan Jansen is a good get for a young quarterback like Jameis Winston.
Yeah, like I was saying, you need to make sure you have a solid center there. So Jensen, I agree with Stoyo, probably a bit of an overpay, but you have to overpay sometimes to get some quality and improve your team and get a winning attitude and a winning situation going on. The Vinny Curry signing is also a good one. He's a little bit older, and his numbers didn't reflect his contract that he got, but he was also on a very talented Eagles line, so we'll be interested to see what he does when he's the main show in town on the end of the line.
Yeah, and they'll be in a tough division once again, so I hope that Tampa Bay gets better. I know they're ready to start winning some games there. The Chiefs add linebacker Anthony Hitchens from Dallas and bring back punter Dustin Colquitt on a 3-year deal. The Redskins sign kicker Dustin Hopkins to a 3-year deal. Keep linebacker Zach Brown on a 3-year deal worth $24 million. and add corner Orlando Scandrick from Dallas on a 2-year deal worth $10 million. Stoyo, what do you make of the direction the Redskins are going? They bring in Zach Brown from Buffalo, Scandrick from Dallas. They got Alex Smith now there. The Redskins are going to be looking a decent amount different coming into 2018.
Yeah, it's kind of like they went in a pretty fast rebuild in one offseason.
Yeah.
And I think they're kind of better off. I'm a fan of Alex Smith. I know a lot of people don't like him, but I think he is an above-average QB.
Yeah.
Under the right system. And
yeah, I think DC is going to be better off. Gavin, do you like these moves?
Yeah, I really do like the signings. I really like the signing of Orlando Scandrick. He can be a really good corner, but he's had some injury issues. But he could be a really good guy to replace Kendall Fuller there. And I really like the signings of the running backs linebackers they've done, especially Zach Brown. It's a great signing for them to put alongside Mason Foster.
Yeah, some interesting moves in DC. Stoyo, the Colts, like you said, they move back in the draft. They load up on draft picks. They move on from defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins, who last year at this time was signed to a 3-year, $30 million deal, but they release him after $10 million paid in 2017, so he's no longer on the team. And they add weapons like tight end Eric Ebron on a 2-year, $15 million deal, and they get wide receiver Ryan Grant, who gets a 1-year, $5 million deal after passing his physical this time. What do you think of Ebron and Ryan Grant going to Indy?
I'm not a fan of Ebron.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a very good tight end. He has too many drops. I'm not a huge fan of Ryan Grant either, but I definitely like getting more draft picks in the draft. You can definitely add a lot of talent in the first few rounds. So trading down when you're in the top 5 is very beneficial if you're able to pull the offer. So
yeah, and Gavin, do you think that Ryan Grant, they get him for cheaper? Do you think that Ebron and Grant can be good weapons in Indy? And I'm sure you like trading down in the draft.
Yeah, the trade down is definitely the best move they made this offseason, but the second best move is definitely not one of these other two, which is obviously keeping Vinatieri around. But it's kind of confusing why they would sign Ebron after he hasn't been that productive in Detroit, and they already have Jack Doyle there. So it's a little bit confusing, but I think that Ebron has the physical talents that could make him a really good player, but definitely not someone that I would have sought in free agency, and I'm not extremely disappointed that the Lions weren't able to retain him.
Yeah, that's a bit of an interesting move. I agree. Bringing in Ebron there. I agree. Doyle's a good fit, and we'll see what Indy does. The Cowboys trade for fullback Jamize Olawale from the Raiders in exchange for draft picks to replace the fullback they let go. The Steelers acquire safety Morgan Burnett from the Packers on a 3-year deal worth $14 million. Stoyo, do you like seeing Morgan Burnett get out of Green Bay? And do you think that's a good move for Pittsburgh?
It's a good move for Pittsburgh. It's a good move for the Bears.
Yeah.
I don't want him in Green Bay anymore, so that's good. As long as the Packers are getting weaker, it's always a good move.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Gavin, what do you think? The Packers lose Demarius Randall, they lose Morgan Burnett, and they don't get Kyle Fuller. So their defense seems to be taking a little bit of a step back. You glad to see these guys leaving the Packers defense?
Yeah, the defense is never what I'm worried about in Green Bay, but if it can get weaker, I'm going to be happier. And not having to play Burnett twice twice a year is definitely going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a great signing for the Steelers. They get a talented safety that is not even in his 30s yet. So they'll get him through the last few years of what we can assume would be quality years, and they shore up one of their top needs in this offseason.
Yeah, and if you ask me, I would be a little bit more focused on defense if I'm in Pittsburgh. That's where you had the most success. Even going back just 10 years, you had a much better defense, and that allowed Roethlisberger to do what he does best. Instead, you're in the playoffs having shootouts with Jacksonville. So I think it's definitely in their best interest to address the defense and get that better. So going into the draft, there's multiple teams attempting to trade up into the top 5, and from what I've been hearing, Penn State running back Saquon Barkley's stock is falling a little bit. More and more people believe that quarterbacks will be in very high demand throughout the top 5, and ESPN's Mel Kiper Jr. believes that the first 3 picks will be all quarterbacks, whether it be the Browns, Giants, Jets, Broncos, Cardinals, and even the Bills looking for early quarterbacks. Stoyo, how do you see it shaping up? Do you think Barkley still goes in the top 5, or do you think the quarterbacks are all going to go first?
I think Barkley's still going to go first overall, and then probably 2 or 3 quarterbacks are going to go.
So if you were the Browns, you would take Barkley first and then get a quarterback at 4?
Correct.
Yeah. What do you think, Gavin? Do you think that's the route they'll go?
I think now that we see the Jets trading up into the 3rd spot ahead of Cleveland at 4, and if we see someone like Buffalo trade in to the number 2 spot, like I said earlier, you don't make these kind of trades and jump up that much in the draft unless it's for a quarterback.
Yeah.
And if you know that there's going to be 2 quarterbacks taken between your first pick and the 4th pick, that's pretty risky to wait and assume that your quarterback is going to be there. I don't think that teams are going to divulge which quarterback they're taking when they trade up. So if someone does trade for the second pick, especially if they do it before the draft, I see Cleveland taking the quarterback that they want first overall, because I think it pretty safely assume that the number 2 and number 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks, and so they can safely take Barkley at 4.
Yeah, I'm a little bit with what you're thinking, Gavin. I think that if the Giants don't take Barkley at number 2, then Barkley will be there at 4. And I would, if you believe in a quarterback, I would get him as soon as you can. Especially you got the number 1 pick, you get your choice of the best quarterback for the future in Cleveland. You absolutely have to get this one right after so many years of failing at that. Stoyo, so if you want to take Barkley at 1, who would you want to get? Who do you think is the best quarterback fit for Cleveland that in your mind?
I don't know if it's for Cleveland, but my favorite QB is Sam Darnold.
I could see Darnold going number 1 overall, which is why I think Cleveland should take him.
Well, yeah, but I'm not in love with any QB, to be honest.
Yeah,
so
same.
I would just pick the running back because he's really elite, and then you don't have one of those QBs left at 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Gavin, what do you think? You think Barkley? You would take Barkley at 4? You're saying, regardless?
Yeah, I would. If assuming they take a quarterback at 1, I would take Barkley at 4.
Yeah.
If he's still there, they lost Joe Thomas, which is a real shame because I think that could have really been a major boost to their team. The 1 year that in theory they get their franchise quarterback for the first time in his whole career, but instead they might they could look at maybe getting Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame. Or Bradley Chubb out of NC State there on the line. But I think that if you're going best pick available, you've got to go Barkley after you pick your quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it shapes out. There's probably going to be some chaos in the top 5. in this year's draft. Former NFL offensive lineman Jonathan Martin is facing up to 5 charges for a threatening Instagram post. He's always seemed a little unstable, and I hope that he gets himself some help. Stoyo, what do you make of Jonathan Martin and his current situation?
You know, you just can't have someone posting threats on social media.
I would have thought he had figured that out by now.
You just can't have that. And if you have a mental health issue, there's help out there.
Yeah.
Get the help you need so you don't do something stupid.
Yeah, Gavin, you have anything to add to that?
No, pretty dumb.
Yeah. Yep. All right, a fun fact for the day. Thanks to Adam Schefter, the Jets are paying Tremaine Johnson $26 million this season for the corner spot, and the Rams are paying Aqib Talib, Marcus Peters, and LaMarcus Joyner a combined $25 million in 2018. So I'd say the Rams are getting a much better production there for the money. You have anything to add, Stoyo?
Yes. ESPN hired John Fox to be their NFL representative.
So ratings are going to go sky up.
Yeah.
Great addition, ESPN. Gavin, is that the move of the offseason?
Oh, yeah. Take away what I said about Tyrann Mathieu. It's all about bringing John Fox in, getting him off the football field.
All right, well, good job, guys. Thanks for coming on again. That's week 5 of the offseason, and we'll keep you posted on all the late-breaking news. We'll be back again next week. We hope to have some guests for you soon. Keep listening, and thanks for the support. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Peace out.